The following podcast is non-profit and is based on the IGCSE history curriculum. Hello, I hope everyone's safe and everyone's doing okay. I hope everyone's healthy, that no one's affected by the coronavirus. As I'm off school, I've got a bit more time, so I'm going to be doing a few more revision podcasts. In this episode, I'm going to go back and have a look at the Weimar Republic and see some of the uprising that occurred during the Weimar rule. When the Weimar Republic came to power, the officials were practically forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles, what Germans called a diktat or dictated peace. At the time of the announcement of the terms of the treaty, the German people were horrified by the harsh terms of the treaty, and German politicians complained to the Allies, trying to persuade them to change some of its most harsh terms, as the war was the Kaiser's fault, not the Weimar government's. Also, it did not punish the Kaiser, but instead punished the ordinary civilians of Germany. The terms of the treaty had the purposes of punishing and humiliating Germany, weakening Germany, and rewarding the Allies for their overall victory, or to compensate them for the damage and casualties. During the rule of the Weimar government, there were a number of attempted uprisings. One of these was the Spartaschist Uprising, which took place in January 1919. It was where German communists tried to overthrow the Weimar government and set up a new communist government, like the one in Russia. In response, the government asked a group of ex-soldiers, called Freikorps, who hated them, to crush the uprising. Although they were loyal to the Kaiser, they helped the government to crush the uprising as they hated communism. However, the leaders of the Spartacists, Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht, were murdered. The government had to decide whether to keep the Freikorps happy and ignore the murders, as it was possible they were responsible for them, or to investigate and arrest those responsible so that justice would be served. In the end, the Weimar government decided to set up an investigation and asked the police to arrest those responsible. Another uprising which took place was the Cat Putsch, which took place in March of 1920. It was a right-wing movement which was sparked by the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. They blamed the Weimar government, who were Social Democrats, for signing the treaty and believed that they had betrayed the Kaiser and the army. As the Freikorps, who hated the Weimar government, were becoming a very powerful force in Germany, the Allies called on President Hebert to break them up. When the Freikorps refused to disband, their leader Wolfgang Kapp attempted to lead the Freikorps to overthrow the government with the aim of setting up a nationalist government. The Freikorps, with the support of some of the German army, including General Ludendorff, took over buildings in Berlin, and President Hebert decided to call on the army to stop the Freikorps. As many of the soldiers in the army had fought alongside the Freikorps, they refused to fight, and President Hebert was forced to call on the workers in Berlin to go on strike and to not cooperate with the Freikorps. In the end, the Freikorps were forced to retreat. However, the Cat Putsch is good evidence that many right-wing groups hated the new socialist government. Apart from these uprisings, there was also the French occupation and workers striking in the Ruhr. The French occupation of the Ruhr took place on March 1923, where French soldiers invaded and occupied the Ruhr, the German industrial area, after the Weimar government was unable to pay the reparations. The government decided to call on the workers in the Ruhr to go on strike with the aim of resisting the French occupation. Although the French left the Ruhr, there was still a problem. The government had printed more money between March and November of 1923 to pay the striking workers. This led to hyperinflation, where the currency becomes almost worthless, and many people lost their savings and the price of goods increased. To solve the problems of hyperinflation, the Weimar government asked the USA to loan money, which they could use to pay the reparations and also to invest in the German economy. They also decided to scrap the old currency and introduce a new one, which was called the Mark. They then knocked off the noughts and strictly limited the amount of the new currency that could be printed out before a new one was introduced. I hope this episode has been of some help, despite some of the pronunciation issues. I'll try to upload a few more podcasts, but in the meantime, you can see a lot more revision material on my website, which I will add the link to in the description of this episode. Thank you for listening. Bye for now. This is the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening.